Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Brett. I'm founder of Pupil Progress. It's the first time we're actually trying some live broadcasts, actually live across YouTube right now, as well as LinkedIn and X, formerly known as Twitter, as we all know. And in the background, we have a wonderful Lynsey Holzer. We're actually going to be discussing today the importance of really effective, efficient systems. We're going to be talking to Lynsey, who is actually a CEO herself of a trust. We're going to hear from her and we're going to bring her in and just hear about some of her train troubles this afternoon, Lynsey. It's okay. We can take a breath and not have to kind of rush the initial conversations. It's all good. How are you getting on?
Yeah, fine. It's been the rail network at its finest today. I'm not sure I'm ready to talk about it, Brett. Thank you.
Okay.
But apologies.
No, you don't need to apologize. It's okay. I'm actually right opposite a railway station, and I can hear all the trains and the announcements saying the delays. But we won't talk about trains. Let's give you time to digest for now.
That's all right.
Yeah, so I want to just take a moment. I've given myself a very brief introduction. I used to teach myself. As a former teacher, became founder of Pupil Progress. Lynsey Holzer is the CEO of the Active Learning Trust. Lynsey, a little bit of an introduction, please, and also a little bit about your role. Because one thing I'm quite conscious of is a lot of people understand there is CEOs of trusts, but also just a little bit about what that means would be wonderful.
Sure. So I'm currently CEO of the Active Learning Trust, which has 20 schools across Cambridgeshire, so mixture of primary, secondary, all through special schools. My second role as CEO of a trust, I'll come back to that role in a little while. Background is entirely education, actually, so came through the ranks, head teacher, executive head, etc. I've been an Ofsted inspector for over 10 years. And when I was first CEO about 8 or 9 years ago of the first trust that I looked after, and at that point did some business training. I had a great chair of trustees who sent me to business school. So I went to Cambridge Judge Business School and actually got hooked on the business end of things as well. So I think if you don't know this, the role of CEO, obviously what we do is we run the whole business of the Multi Academy Trust. So obviously I have an education background. Some CEOs don't. Some come from business background, because we essentially run the entire enterprise. So I have with me on my team a director of education with a whole education team. I have a director of finance with a whole finance team, a director of operations who holds estates, data, comms, marketing, all of those areas, and also a director of people. A massive area for those of us in this business. So I suppose my role, coming back to what Brett asked, my role is running the business. So just like it would be in any other enterprise. So in terms of leadership of all of those areas, I think it happens that I do have a background in education. So I think I'd probably give the hardest time to my director of education, I would imagine he would say. But at the same time, we steer the business just in any other way as we would steer any enterprise. So that's really my role. I completely love my job. This one is the best job I've ever had. I couldn't imagine not doing it, and it is an incredible role. And I suppose I would say as well, I really believe in the sector. So in terms of that professional generosity within this sector, one of our absolute strategic aims within the Active Learning Trust is about whole sector stuff. So we do get involved in things. We want to make the whole sector better. We are not about competition and who wears which uniform. So I think hopefully the sector is moving that direction, but we feel that very strongly. Is that enough, Brett? Because I can talk all day.
Oh, no, that's perfect. And what's interesting is actually it's a nice little segue and a bit of a plug to the work you're doing, because it frames your belief in the sector. The fact you're running that Aspiring Heads event, which is on Thursday, we're supporting it. We're getting right behind it because we believe in the sector too. But it's also really refreshing hearing you talk about a group of schools, Multi Academy Trust being a business. It's often a dirty word. Money and business in education is obviously often quite a taboo subjects. It's really refreshing because I know how successful the Active Learning Trust is, and for you to actually use that word business and listening to the terms you're talking about, the areas, the finance, it's actually really refreshing to hear. Really refreshing. So I actually am just going to share how we met, and we met at the Pixel conference, and it kind of segues into why we wanted to talk to you and also share with other aspiring leaders and other schools and CEOs about the importance of really effective systems to help sharpen that leadership. And one of the things that I want to reflect on, one is your opening speech at the recent MatchStrat event and your passion to actually stop polishing existing systems and be really revolutionary. Now, I met you at the Pixel conference secondary last year, and you and Jeremy came over and were just very excited about the potential of a system, right? So I'm actually wanted to just frame how we actually came to these types of conversations, how we came to support. So I'm actually keen to learn, what was the real spark moment where you were seeing what had been presented, but then that connection of your problems as a trust CEO and being able to really impact on outcomes for students?
Right. Thank you, Brett. So I am really passionate that I think education is one of the least innovative sectors. I think that we sit back on things we've always done in schools for a variety of reasons. So Active Learning Trust, and certainly my own beliefs are that you've really got to look and think deeply about everything we're doing. Actually, everything is on the table. So I think in schools, in great trusts especially, and some standalone schools, we are pushing harder and harder for precise teaching now. So we know more about teaching, we know more about the way children learn, we talk about that more in schools, in education. And actually, if we want our teachers to be able to access really precise teaching where they know exactly where the pupil is, where the gap is, how to fill the gap, which is what we're expecting, then current systems won't do. We will ever push our teachers to something, I think, that is almost too tough to do. So when I heard you were talking about pupil progress, Brett, and I've got a real background in assessment. I'm really, really keen on pursuing that and making sure we get good systems in our schools, because it is everything. When I heard you talk about the system, what I loved about it and why I got so excited about it is because it makes that accessing of a better level of precise teaching actually doable. Because we can't just keep pushing our teachers to do what is nearly impossible. But what this system does, and this isn't polishing a system, this is a revolution of a system. So it's a system where actually it has obviously all the exam details on there, which really matters, especially for our older pupils and teachers. But it allows you to map and track as a teacher every one of those students, and that's new, because actually it's not just a spreadsheet, it's not just maths who are doing it, it's actually across the board. And when we show the teachers, get really excited about it. When I talk to the staff, and in fact I was doing this yesterday, Brett, about what I see as the 3 levels of pupil progress. The first one is that we can enter all of the mocks, PPEs, whatever they are, into the system, and we can map gaps and do all of those things. What we're trying to access now, having done that last year, really made a difference to results, is like layer 2. Layer 2 for me is when these teachers in our secondary phase are really using it in their everyday practice. So it's becoming part of their where are they up to now system. And then it's starting to drive bespoke interventions. And when I say interventions, I mean lesson-based interventions and outside. The bit that gets me really excited is that third phase where the kids are owning this, because I think they need to own it for all kinds of reasons. So when I see this system where these beautiful young people can own exactly where they're up to, and they can start coming up to us and saying, I'm here, I need work on here, or we can say, who needs work on this? Then these are nearly adults, they need to be in that section. And I know, Brett, that we talk every time I see you about what's the AI doing next, Brett. So I know there will be a level 4 that we'll be talking about soon. So for me, again, this is not just polishing a really difficult system. It's actually taking the levels we're getting to in education and saying, how can we support the teachers to deliver real precision in teaching and therefore outcomes for pupils? So that's why I got so excited about it.
I mean, it all resonates really. And I'm actually really glad you have kind of said it organically, which is about the students owning the data. And interestingly, that we've got a particularly sophisticated system. But what's really fascinating here is somehow we've become disconnected to the idea that all of these numbers and charts and graphs and the way that we present it can be as colorful and as wonderful as we want in leadership meetings and line management meetings. But unless the students actually care, it's like it's actually irrelevant, because none of those bar charts are going to change. They're going to go in the right direction if the student still goes home, still doesn't go to intervention, still doesn't pay attention in lesson. So I'm actually really, I'm glad you've actually touched on the most important thing, which is how do we get this into a student's hands for them to become motivated? And also that workload piece, because if the students are working hard, the teachers are relieved of that burden. And actually that's what we really want to drive is reducing workload. I want to use the word turbulence actually, and I want to give some value to the CEOs that are watching, the aspiring CEOs that are watching too, because I don't want to just talk about pupil progress. I want to give the opportunity for them to, that word turbulence, let's just take systems in general. You're very brave in the understanding every plane gets us to where we want to get to. It's known as the safest mode of travel, but no plane ever takes off and lands without any turbulence, right? So I'd actually like you to just share with your experience about how you've launched this as a system, but also other systems to get through that turbulence, to go through the difficult times. Because, we've launched it with our 250 plus whole schools and 700 schools that we're working with, and there will be some rocky roads. It doesn't just go perfectly. So I'd really love some insight and for you to be able to share with other future leaders and current leaders.
This Active Learning Trust, is no secret, I think, that this was a trust in real trouble. So when I took over last January, we are turbulence, us over here. The change, it's all change management. So we think very carefully. We talk a lot about that in terms of managing the level of change, the amount of projects on the way. So I suppose the first thing I'd say is that you have to do the right thing at the right time. So had we, even if we'd have loved this as a system, had we gone into our schools straight away and said, this is what we're doing, all of these things, because of all the other things that were happening at the same time, that wouldn't have worked. So I think this system in particular, it's making sure that people understand why we're doing it. It is absolutely, we always don't talk about ourselves first. So whenever we've got something new to introduce, we might be convinced of that, but we've got to make sure that we convince our leaders who will be behind this. And if they're not convinced, then we'll either keep convincing or listen to all the why of that in terms of what's going on. So I would say, with all of the change that goes on and the complexities of leading a distributed organization like a MAT, then we talk about over communication. So it's absolutely selling the idea to people, saying why we're doing it, and then communication all the time and backwards and saying, how is that feeling? How is that part landing? Which bit do you want to do first? What will this look like? So there's been lots of that. And as I said, we looked at people progress. I would love it if we could get right to stage 3 right away. And anybody who works with me will tell you that I'm fairly impatient. So I'd love it if we could go in at that level, but it simply won't stick. And at the same time, we have our Director of Education is with his team are running a program where we're standardizing principles around implementation, around curriculum. So we've got to just be careful with that, because we've got to make sure that one enables another rather than working against each other. So I think our whole executive team, the project management and change management systems, we spend a lot of time on that. And I think that's where I come back to the business end, Brett. It reflects business practice. The way we do that, the way we project manage, the way we manage the change comes entirely from good practice in business. So, and I would say not from what people have learned in education. So that's really important to us. We have comms plans around all these things, but actually underneath it, when we're launching something in the schools, then we will have done loads of work talking to the leaders first, talking to the various stakeholders, meaningful work. We never just land things on people. So we do actually talk about it. Is it appropriate? Which bits? How will that land? And then we come back together over and over again. This pupil progress was actually part of our one of our year 11 project, which runs alongside some of our teaching and learning projects. And so actually, and it came a few months in, but we couldn't turn away from what a great product it was at that first stage. But again, we went back and forward to the group saying which bit lands here and there. And of all the secondary schools that were taking that on, they were all at different stages as well. So we allow the flexibility to say, you do that bit because you're ready for that bit. You do this bit here, and let's keep talking about it. So I think you have to be flexible, know your schools really well, know your leaders really well, and over communicate those things. And again, we don't get it right all the time, no way, but we're really open. And I know if our heads were here, they would say absolutely, we are part of it. We've got a clear sense of direction, and we've got clearly aspirational leaders who keep putting things in front of us that we can't turn away from, but we do it together. And I think that's why we've been able to manage the speed of change that we have.
It's really fascinating listening to you talk, because we've noticed the same things with schools that are adopting platforms, even other platforms as well, that are part of our ecosystem. And just that recap, really that why. And if I think about this, the trusts and the schools that have adopted even our platform and other platforms the most effectively, is the leadership team have done two very, very important things. They've explained why we're doing this, how does it fit in, but they've gone with that message of conviction that we've thought about it, and we're going to give you the details so that you can understand that you're part of the process. And I actually listened to you and Jeremy talk at the last Pixel conference, and it was amazing to hear the success of the English and maths drive that you've had at Active Learning, because you haven't just said it's got to be something that's action on a to-do list. It's all encompassing. And I've noticed that about all of your systems, and it's actually really great reflection. So one of the things I noted here was that repetition. Just this is what we are doing. This is how we're doing it. This is why we're doing it. Yeah.
I think as well, can I add to that, Brett? We
Yeah,
deeply evaluate. So we evaluate as we go along, and we evaluate after. And these are not pretend evaluations. We ask all the difficult questions like, why did that go well? Why do we think it went well? Why could it possibly have gone well? So we're not indulging ourselves in our own biases with that. And we ask that widely. So I think at the end of year one of that particular project, we must have run 3 different whole leader sessions around evaluation, and they were full half days to say where did it go well and not well, and we're really honest with each other. So we're very open. And I think in that Pixel session you're talking about, where Jeremy was talking about, we came up with a kind of, it was like a fun bit, but it was like an equation to say actually that the schools that you could predict your percentage increase, this was a grade 5 for English Maths combined, if you took a score of conviction and strategy and implementation, and conviction was the most powerful. So where the leaders really believed in it and got everybody around them to believe in it, we had a considerable, a high percentage increase there. In schools where it wasn't necessarily obvious to the leaders that that could happen. So again, by doing that, by staying together and by being open and selling the why that's student focused, we really lift the lid on the aspirations. So we say anything's possible. You can have any percentage you want. You can, same for anything. You have any outcomes you want if you get the input right. So we believe that, and so we do it together. And there's no, that it's removing the competition between the schools as well, to say we're all in this together. If you've got a better way, then talk about it. And that didn't happen overnight. It's a culture thing, obviously, but it's I would say well embedded now.
Yeah, it's really great to hear. Just a little message to anyone that's listening. Feel free to drop a comment, ask a question. I know Lynsey's really passionate about supporting people who are current leaders or future leaders, especially listening as well, how much business experience as well as education experience. I did want to actually just make that link, because you had a particular success story with one of your schools, which is really that tipping point where you saw what you saw the vision when we first met, and then that tipping point when the schools started to really buy in, because they saw, oh, okay, I now see what these guys saw that first day. I'd be really keen for you to share what happened there. Where was the magic?
And I think it's, we get really excited about the things that are happening in school, and if we really believe in something like this product, this service, I think you have to show people that you're passionate about it and sell it. It is like a sell. So each of the, and when I say knowing the heads, knowing the schools, the heads are all different people, and they care passionately about their school, and they care passionately about what they're doing. So they all need slightly different ways round in terms of when you're talking about different things, and they're all in different circumstances, with different fears and things like that. So I think the school you're talking to about the one that probably got the highest jump. I think the magic, there was loads of magic moments there actually, and the magic I think happened. The head was really sold on that really early on, because he really cares about kids and outcomes and will literally do anything to help that school and that community. It came in that circumstances. It came when they were selling that to the community, when they had the parents in, and the parents started to by the autonomy their kids could have in terms of, if you want this bad enough, then this is what you need to do. And there was loads of magic with that that night. I got to admit, there were tears that night. It was emotional, and it should be, because education is emotional. So, and I think that we visited that school most weeks over the year, and every time those kids really wanted it. They were really in it. They were really sold on their own futures. And I never understand. I think primary schools generally are better at tracking their pupils individually. And I'm not sure that often secondary schools are not so good at that from year 7 through. I think this school suddenly saw the power of that, saw the power of every single student getting it for themselves. So, I think there were loads of magic moments with that one. And results day wasn't half bad either, Brett, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I remember getting those messages and emails from yourself. It's what everyone really strives for in the industry. I remember getting exam results in, and if they came in, everyone's on cloud 9. It's a wonderful feeling. It's also interesting you're talking about the primary tracking as well, because we've started working with schools and working with trusts, including yourselves, about, well, how can we start to support that whole through process? And I don't know. There's no element of primary teaching that's simpler, but for some reason there is this complexity that grows at secondary level, which seems to creep in, or has crept in, that we've noticed, where we're kind of like, well, it doesn't have to be as complex as this. So I did want to actually just get you to share a little bit about the event that's coming up on Thursday as well, which is the Inspiring Heads. Again, leaning in on that passion for your passion for the sector, your passion as a leader. So there's an event on Thursday, Inspiring Heads. Tell us a little bit about it, why you should get involved, and also why you should come to any future events as well, because there's a number of them coming up.
So I think this came from, we were looking at, as a trust, and obviously we're privileged to see lots of information about comings and goings, and we identified that our talent pipeline is stuck in a few different areas, STEM subjects at secondary, Senkos, and head teachers. And we were really trying to ask different questions about why people were not coming through and wanting to be heads. We had loads of senior leaders across the trust and other trusts who would be great at it, but there were some barriers that were stopping them going ahead with that. And it wasn't technical knowledge. We had a look what was around, and we were sort of half involved with a couple of schemes going on locally that were trying to get aspiring heads to come and join, and they were telling them, look, here's some technical aspects of it, here's the budget stuff, blah, blah, blah. So we asked some different questions. I think we asked our people in our trust, what is it that's getting in the way? And some of them, we're talking about myths, we think, surrounding the job role, that you're alone, the levels of accountability, your work-life balance, and things like that. So we looked at those parts, and together with Jeremy Rowe, who is recently another CEO but joined us as project lead last year, with tons of experience, we looked at actually what could we do to persuade these people that it's not quite as scary as it looks, and what can we do to hold them through that process. So we started last year and looked at a program that was a bit different, we think, and we call it Inspiring Heads rather than Aspiring Heads, because we're really trying to inspire them to say, actually, it's not that bad, and actually it's absolutely brilliant, and these are the tools, and this is how you can do this. So we assembled a group of speakers that are incredible, and they make it personal and emotional. That first session very, very much about the why, but it was about exploring your own brand. What's your brand as a leader? And saying, actually, you don't have to be a white middle-aged man in a suit to be ahead, because that was coming through as well. And we talk about lots of people's about current head stories and the long and winding road that gets them to that point. Say it doesn't have to be one way. There's not a one size fits all. So we explored people's own brands and said you can be a quiet head, a loud head, a big personality, small, all of those types of things. But in my many years of leading things like that, I don't think I've ever seen such a profound and moving day. And the feedback was incredible. And I think it's because it was emotional and personal, and we tapped into that scene. We very quickly, in that first round, there were 40 people on there from across our trust. And because we put that on quite quickly, just a 3-session, it's actually 4 sessions now across the year, it brings them together as a community. But we thought, actually, wouldn't that be nice if we could be professionally generous across the system? Because we've got no problem, actually. We've got lots of heads that have been recruited in the last year and a half, but they're taken from another area, and we want to be able to give back to the system. So, we're not just growing baby new heads for our schools. If those people go and join other people's schools, we've succeeded as well, and we really feel that. So we went out to the local sector and talked to other MATs and said, look, we're doing this for this reason. Would you want to be part of it? And actually, so cohort 2 starts on Thursday. In the middle of all that, I was talking about it at probably some maybe Pixel, I think, Brett, and you guys came up and said, actually, that aligns with what we're trying to do as a sector, that professional generosity, and we'd be really happy to sponsor that, which was a great help. Thank you. We really appreciate that, and also that voice to say we want to be part of that as well. So I think we've got maybe 6 or 7 other MATs in the area that are coming along and sending their people. That's profound, because it takes real trust to do that, and I understand that. And I think we're getting into the next phase of where we're not all competitors, and I'm so grateful to those people because they're sending them along. I'm not trying to poach their people. It's nothing like that. We're genuinely trying to come together to do some good across the sector, and I know that they'll see that when they send their guys across, and hopefully we can start breaking down those walls. So I think it's important to me because it's developing great leaders. But I think wider, it's important because we're trying to get to this better together sector who don't compete with each other. So we're really excited about it. Can't wait for Thursday. We've got an amazing lineup of speakers. Next week is part 2 of the first cohort, and again another great lineup of speakers. And they're all a bit different. It's not your average. We don't teach people the technical skills. They can learn that easily, but they can't learn this bit on the job. We want them to go in fully confident to be absolutely themselves and know that there are no barriers in their way.
Yeah, I mean, it's wonderful that you're really pushing this, because I often found, even at assistant principal level, it was quite a lonely place because there was less assistant principals in your own school. You didn't really just get on you didn't have a phone book of numbers from other assistant principals at that same level. We're dealing with a vice principal who may be quite tough to, have conversations with. So the fact that you're actually driving an agenda that supports aspiring leaders, because it's not a lonely place. But I also really love the fact you've touched on, which is just generally leadership, creating that freedom for people to explore and know that it will come back round. We have the same thing at Pupil Progress. If there's a better opportunity for you somewhere, we really promote it, because at some point, hopefully another business is going to be sharing that they can go wherever they feel they need to get their expertise loved and listened to. So it's really refreshing to hear that as well, which is amazing. And just, can you just remind me as well, what we've got one on Thursday, and how would you get involved? We're going to put some details as well. So I don't want to just put you on the spot, but do let us know what's coming up, because it's not just what's on Thursday. There's lots coming too.
Yeah, sure. So they can just contact LinkedIn, etc. Excuse me. We're going to be doing further rounds, I think, of the leadership support. One of the things that's most definitely in the pipeline, Brett, is we're doing a big send service redesign. That's our significant innovation project at the moment. And I know many people are trying to rethink send, but we're thinking it probably needs revolution. And so I think in the near future, we will have something that is trying to unstick the role of Senko, but our Senkos might look quite different going forward. So so it's those leaders of SEND and what they need, because personally I think the reason we can't get good Senkos is the job is almost impossible currently. So so look out for that one in the future, I think, is the next part. But we do lots of things cross sector as well, and always happy to help.
Amazing. I'm going to ask you, just in case anyone can't get there, we know that, a teaching day, the timetable, especially if you're a vice principal or assistant principal trying to get into that headship mindset, might not be able to get out of school. So what would you say to someone now listening to this, if they're not going to be able to attend to one of them or attend one of those events? What would you say to them to give them that, that lift, that energy surge, that motivation to do something, even if it's not through one of your events?
100%, and find yourself a good mentor. I would say part of our system of this is that the guys, the new heads, are hooked up with a mentor from within trust. But if there's nobody around you, especially if you're not in a trust, if there's nobody around you, then reach out. We're always happy to talk about those things, talk about what the barriers are for those things. If you can get yourself a coach as well, though, I think they're exceptional. So yeah, absolutely reach out, because we're doing lots of different things, and going forward we're just looking into some kind of snapshot videos that will hopefully reach the parts other parts are not reaching, in terms of those kind of messages coming through as well.
Amazing. I'm fully aware. I'm going to just circle back round to our original comment, and the thing that really caught me and my attention, particularly in the room's attention when you were at the Matchstrat event, was that revolutionary versus just polishing existing systems. And again, I do want to stress, this is not just about the importance of looking at people progress. It's about all systems. A little bit of a summary as well. To be brave, I've watched active learning just be really passionate, really brave, understand that things come with turbulence. We've got a fantastic software, but the truth is, any CEO or head teacher listening to this, if you think you're going to choose something with passion and it's going to go swimmingly well from day one, it's not, regardless of how good the software is. So whether it's people progress or whether it's another system that is new and innovative and is not actually polishing existing systems, I would strongly urge that you understand there's going to be some bumpy roads. But as Lynsey's been talking about, if you're really clear with the why, you're really clear with the message about what it is you're doing and why we're doing it, and we're really consistent, and you actually drive it as an all-encompassing message, I really think you're going to be able to start to create really slick systems, especially with the innovation that's coming out. I mean, we're at the forefront of a lot of it, and we're in contact with a lot of companies that are also pushing boundaries too. So education is looking really, really exciting. Lynsey, is there anything that you want to just kind of add as we're kind of going to wrap this up? Because I'm very conscious you've been traveling, you've got a very busy schedule, and I think you deserve maybe a glass of wine or a gin and tonic, maybe.
I do. I suppose really to reinforce what you're saying there, Brett, I think that we're in such a turbulent time in education that I think we have to ask the questions of all the things, and I think it's asking the questions, then following it through. So if, like you say, Brett, if you put something new in, then don't leave it, keep evaluating it, saying, why is it not working, why is it not, if it looks like it's failed, then pick it up again and have a look at it and ask some of those uncomfortable questions. And I think it's just very, very quickly, Brett, obviously we're all without Progress 8 this year, which is really interesting. And I was recently at a national event where they were saying, I was thinking, right, this is great. They're going to ask real questions about, do we need it? Is it, what do we do? How do we measure? Is assessment, our targets, and all those things? But it didn't. What they did was put forward another algorithm, another way to get the same measures out, instead of the question that should have been asked at that forum, which was, what are we doing? What are we measuring, and the why? And we can't control everything the government will or won't do, or Ofsted will or won't do, but I think we've got more power than we think to drive the sector in the way that we want it driven. So in terms of, if you at ALT, we don't believe in targets, so we are proud of that. We've removed them from appraisal, we've removed them from school-based decisions and talk, and we'll absolutely profoundly back that to anybody who will listen. We do believe in really high quality education. We do believe in really refined tracking. So I think it's time for bravery, is what I would say, and asking those questions. You know, and we can drive more than we think, is what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it firsthand, and the way that you guys lead the trust and the U-turn it's done, and especially with the results and the buy-in from the community. That's a really powerful conversation there, because it's not just the teachers, it's the full communities, the parents, the carers, the friends of those parents and carers. It's all encompassing. And I remember that, you know, when we were working in Bermondsey, it wasn't just about that teacher in that classroom, it was the whole community. And we would be out in the school, you know, vicinity, even half a mile away from school, you know, talking to the students on the way home. So it's I could talk to you for a very long time, but as I said, I do want to give you a chance to go and give yourself a bit of a respite before you're on another busy day tomorrow. Lynsey Holzer, CEO of Active Learning Trust. Really appreciate your time. I've been Brett Griffin, founder of Pupil Progress. If you do want to have any more conversations with either of us, please just connect on LinkedIn. We'd be more than happy to help. And I can't stress enough just how wonderfully brilliant this woman is and how inspirational she is. So do reach out and take them up on these offers, because they're incredible. Thanks for your time, everyone. And I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll maybe speak soon.
Thank you. Thanks all.